Hello, hello, and welcome. Welcome back. Yes, I am Dr. Natalie Forrest, and I'm here today for another segment of my show, Misfit. Start living and thriving now. Thanks for tuning in. Today, as you can see, I'm trying something else out in the background. I'm going to try to mix it up and not fit in, of course. And since you're here, I'm sure you're all aware of the other amazing shows on Transformation TV. So always remember to check them out too. We have shows almost every day of the week, more coming, so keep an eye out. And for this show, please remember that you can be in touch with me, down below, make comments, get in touch via the website. I love to actually help you in all of this process and progress and moving forward wherever I can. So let's definitely talk. However, for today, as you can see, I have no guest. Woo! I have no guest because from time to time, as you have noticed, I want to share some other items with you that are dear to my heart. And today, the show is called The Hidden Power of Patterns. Okay, and that's also why I chose this background today, because I wanted to make sure that you understand that we can all thrive. We can all move up to wherever we want. So the only thing that is holding you back, holding me back, holding anybody back is actually fear. And fear is actually a hidden pattern. And if fear is holding us back, very clearly, it has power over us. So what can we do for this power to not hold us back? Or in other words, how can we modify or change this power and utilize that power for us to move up those stairs to wherever our dream is? Good question, isn't it? Well, you see, that's what I work on. Yes, I work on you being you, doing the best when it comes to your performance, loving yourself, no longer judging yourself, which mostly is negative. But in all of that, the base process that I have developed and that is rooted in my own experiences is what I call the hidden power of patterns. Because in order to move those stairs, move up those stairs, we actually need to understand what's in here. Not the mind per se, but the subconscious mind. So when I talk about the hidden power of patterns, when I talk about unlocking those patterns, and that's also the subtitle, of course, for Be You, you need to understand that we all have them. Think about history. As you know by now, I'm a historian by trade. So if you're thinking about history, then one very, very crucial aspect is that history seems to repeat itself over and over again. So that would qualify as a pattern, wouldn't it? So if it's a pattern, then are we learning from it? Are we not learning from it? What are we doing with those patterns in history? When I still used to teach history, it was pretty funny because I actually used to tell my students that it's not history that has the patterns, it's the people. You can pretty much predict in many instances what's going to happen next if you understand the people. So history is about psychology, it's about human beings. You and I were a human being, at least this time around, whatever else you believe in. So we have some subconscious mind set. And we need to, as I like to say, flex that mind. And when we flex that mind, we expand our abilities. We expand our understanding of those hidden patterns and the power that they have over us. You see, a lot of the things that we do in what I like to call autopilot. We just do the same things over and over again. I call it autopilot. Some other people call it routine. But really, it is autopilot. Just think about it. When you wake up in the morning, what's the very first thing you do? I'm just asking this because it's really, really important to understand that from the moment the alarm clock rings, you may be on autopilot. And if that is the case, then there are two questions. One, do you want to be on autopilot? And two, how can you get out of it if you don't want to be in it? And again, there's no right or wrong, nothing that I share with you, none of the insights, none of the processes that I've created, that my guests have created, are to say that you are wrong. It's always a choice. So the first step to understanding those patterns is, okay, I'm on autopilot. When I wake up in the morning, the very first thing I do is blah, 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 blah. And I'm doing it without thinking about it. Like everything I do from the moment that the alarm clock rings is conscious. And I had to train myself. Because yes, as much as we always want to wake up happy because we pursue our passion, there are times when we wake up and we don't really want to get up. No matter how wonderful your life is, no matter how much you have achieved, somebody tells you they wake up every morning with the same passion and never having a doubt. No, I just can't buy that. I'm sorry, I can't. And no, I'm not really sorry. Okay, so let's look at those patterns in the morning. Let's say you wake up and you go over to the window and you open up the curtains and it's raining outside. What do you say? What do you think? Because remember, thoughts are things, as Khalil Gibran said a number of years ago. My mom gifted me and my brother some of those little books by him. They're very, very, very insightful. So what are the thoughts? A lot of people, if you're honest, look outside the window. It's not the beautiful sunrise that you expected. It's gray. It looks dreary, as some people would say. And then your autopilot may just kick in. And it kicks in as saying, oh, no, not rain again. What am I going to wear? What's traffic going to be like? It's all that thought that kicks in right then and there. And that's autopilot. Because you and I, we both know that we need the rain. Maybe not torrential downpour every day, but we need the rain. And the rain makes it green. So why not celebrate the rain? Why not celebrate that nature, Mother Nature, is giving us a different view of herself? And if there is, by the way, just hypothetically speaking, torrential downpouring every single day, we may be asked to pay attention and figure out why that is. Because the world at large is also on autopilot. Consuming, throwing stuff out. We don't even think about all of the plastic and other things that we use. But I don't want to go into my eco speech. So what is it that you do first thing in the morning? You go over, or maybe you don't even open the curtains. Maybe the first thing you do is walk in the kitchen, half asleep, and make yourself a coffee. So if you do that, or maybe you just push the button because it's all set up with a timer. If you do that, do you really taste the coffee? Do you really consciously walk into the kitchen? Do you know whether the first thing you do in the bathroom is brush your teeth or brush your hair or take a shower? If you don't, then you're on autopilot. And again, there's nothing wrong with it. But that autopilot has a power because it sets you up right then and there for the rest of the day. The very first thought in the morning sets you up for the rest of the day. So I've started my own little practice. Very first thing when that alarm clock rings, yes, I turn it off. But in the process of turning the alarm clock off, I start talking to myself. I start talking to the universe. And in this conversation, I'm doing two things. Number one, I'm only saying nice things because I want to set the day up the right way. But in addition to that, I give thanks. I was talking with a new friend of mine the other day, Susan, and she also said that, she gives thanks every morning. It's the little things. So giving thanks for being able to open your eyes, giving thanks for hearing your child in the other room breathing, giving thanks for breathing, giving thanks for having a roof over your head, for maybe the partner next to you. Thanks for the dreams that you've had. Thanks for the smell in the air. There's so much every morning when you wake up to be thankful for. And by being thankful and starting to already set the path of how can I make this day even better? How can I, as another friend of mine and my mentor says, yeah, how can I extend the hand? Not asking for anything, but giving. So if you start working on that process, you're setting the day up differently. You're beginning to move out of autopilot. And if you start paying attention to every step that you take, to the houses that you see while you're driving to work, instead of doing 5 things at the same time, which is dangerous anyhow. Now, if you're willing to work on those patterns and starting to identify them, to figure out, do I like them? Do I not like them? Do I want to keep them? Do I want to modify them? What do I want to do with these patterns? You need to know yourself. You see, it always starts with yourself, doesn't it? It always does. Whether the small impact that we have in our lives, in our loved ones' lives, at humanity, it all starts here. If we don't take care of ourselves, if we don't know ourselves, if we don't love ourselves, it doesn't matter. And the biggest pattern that the majority of people have is that they don't love themselves. They don't love themselves and they don't know themselves. And don't get me wrong, it can be scary to know yourself. Because if you know yourself, you know good, bad, and in between. And I don't even believe in good and bad. But there are things that we might like to not remember. There might be things that we wish we hadn't done. But let's face it, everything that we've done, it's a lesson. And we either learn it or we do it again. And once we've learned it, we won't ever do it again. Those are all patterns. Very simple. So if you want to know yourself, if you want to get to really know yourself, start within. And the very first thing is that you need to love yourself. The only way that you can get there is by understanding your unique, amazing purpose. And we'll talk about the purpose and the potential at some point as well. Let's stick with the patterns for now. Write down what your patterns are. All the examples I just gave you about waking up in the morning. When I work with my mentees, I make them write that down. I'm that forceful, yes. Write it down when you wake up in the morning. Write it down. And most importantly, I want them to integrate another pattern in the evening. And if you've read my BU book, then you know I'm big on journaling. Even in this one, I talk a lot about journaling. Because it is key to get it out of here. Anything that is in your mind, especially your subconscious mind, once you start putting it on paper, it moves. And once you see it on paper, you can actually identify it. Because otherwise it just keeps going and going and going and going and going and going, and you'll never go up those stairs. There is a power in those patterns. Who do you surround yourself with? This is another very, very important question for your patterns. And when you're around those people, what do? Are you allowing your amazing self to move forward, or are you just following the crowd? So when you're looking at making a little bit of change, the first one being getting to really, really know yourself. And that reminds me, I'm not sure if they're still up, but I used to have a radio show on Voice America that was actually called Know Thyself. Now, some of the nuggets are in there too. If it's still up somewhere, I don't know if it is. So what I outline in Revolutionize, this book here that I've been referencing a couple of times today, is that generally I believe, and I have identified, 5 main types when it comes to how people react to change. And how you react to change is important because that helps you understand how you react to your patterns. Number one, do you really want to identify them? Because that's a change. Number two, do you really want to change them? Because that's a change. And then number three, what's going to happen if you implement a modification to your patterns? Because that's probably going to change life just a little bit. Now, if you're like me, you're all like, yay, let's take that step to freedom. If you're not sure, then that's okay, but what is the next possible step to ease you into that? So the 5 types that I outline on page 87 are very, very simple. Okay? The revolutionary. Okay. Hello. You have the historian. Remember, funny thing, I'm a historian by trade. The historian is very, very important because they chronicle everything. They know everything that happened. Did they learn from it? The adventurer. They hear change, they see something interesting, they jump right in, regardless of anything. It's just like, yay, let's go. And then, of course, one of my favorites, the theoretician. It's all here, spinning and spinning and spinning, looking at all the different options over and over and over again. They look at all the options. And they're pretty much residing and choosing to reside in theory. And the last one of these 5 main types, of course, is the dreamer. Dreams. You're dreaming to walk up those stairs. But a dream is a dream. Unless you act, it remains a dream. Dreams are beautiful. I love dreams. But when I wake up in the mornings and I have a dream, I'm going to start writing down what action steps I can take. I'm going to figure out, what did the dream mean that I just had? What's going on with this dream thing? There's got to be a message here. No, that's me. So those are the 5 main types that I have identified through the processes that I have created, rooted in my own life, rooted in the lives of many others that I've helped. And I recommend that you take a look at this. Because we do know that all of our patterns have power over us. Just like anything we do has power. We can use power for good, we can use power for bad. And I'm using those terms because most people like to use them. I honestly don't believe in good and bad. So what are your patterns? Good, bad, evil, sunny, shiny, not so shiny. And how do you recognize them? You need to get them first out of here, preferably onto paper. And that's why the process of you writing down how you start the day out actually helps you become more conscious, become more aware of this process. And no, that doesn't mean that all of a sudden all of your patterns will just pop up and you'll know what to do immediately. No, it's still a process because some of those patterns are so ingrained by society that we don't even know they're patterns. And most of them have been ingrained by society or our loved ones from love. They didn't give us anything necessarily to put us down and make us feel bad, even though society does like to keep us in a certain spot, doesn't it? The role of women, the role of men, the role of cats, the role of whatever. And we need to have an income to pay bills. Those are all roles that we play. So that's a given, and we've accepted many of them. A society needs certain rules in which we can all live together. Those rules, however, can sometimes be bent a little bit. Because what those rules do is they imprint certain patterns on you to keep you in those roles. Most of the time as a protective mechanism. And yet, within those rules and guidelines, we tend to often lose the magnificent I that I am, the magnificent you that you are. And by peeling off some of those patterns, you'll actually recognize who you are. You'll get to know yourself again, and trust me, you'll get to love yourself again. So one of the things that I always give as another example is when I first started this business. My first business was completely spiritual. And then I moved a little bit more into the business consultancy and so forth. And now I'm like this weird in-between transformational mentor for life and business thing. I don't fit the category. It's really hard to put me on a label. I do like the revolutionary label. But what I want to share with you is that in the early days, I barely had revenue. I did not make a lot of money. And there were times when I was wondering how to pay my bills. And yet I knew this is what I had to do. This was my calling. Moving from the classroom out, that was my calling. But then how can I move up the stairs? How can I stop worrying about paying bills? And I remember very vividly, actually, I was standing in this very office. I was looking out that way where my window is. I was looking out that way. And I was thinking, oh, how come I cannot give more? How come I have to worry about paying my bills? That takes so much positive energy away from me. And all of a sudden it clicked in the back of my mind. It was actually very funny because what happened was that something my mother taught my brother and I came rushing into the forefront. It like started back here and I would beep, 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 almost like a Morse code signal or something. So it started coming to the forefront, and what it was that my mother taught my brother and I that we could survive on very, very little. And I think that is one of the biggest gifts ever. We don't need stuff. Not at all. We can live on bread and butter or bread and water as long as we have each other, as long as we trust each other. We're good. We don't need lots of stuff. Neither one of us. And I'm trying to instill that in my child too. But if you think about it, if I can survive on very little, will I ask for what I'm worth? And all of a sudden I realized that this pattern, this positive pattern of you can survive on little, you don't need to rely on stuff, you're not materialistic, that was actually holding me back. It was holding me back in two ways. Number one, I wouldn't ask for the value of what I was providing. So the value of what I am worth when I serve you as a consultant, mentor, etc. I wouldn't ask. I would listen to all the stories of how they couldn't pay their bills either. They really wanted to make a change, but they couldn't commit. And I would buy into all of that. And to some degree, of course, that is true. Yet on the other hand, I can provide you with a life that you can currently only imagine. What is that worth to you? Plus, I don't want the money necessarily to myself, do I? But if I can move up those stairs, I can give more. And once I realized that, things changed. Not overnight, because you still got to walk the walk, right? But I identified this pattern. I looked at it and I said, okay, what do I want to do with it? I still give away plenty, right? I still make deals, barter, so that those who really need me, I can serve, I can help so that they can live their lives, their ways. But there are others who need to commit, not for me, but for themselves. And so once I identified that pattern, wrote it down, figured out where it came from, I made a change. Not a 380 change, because I can still live on very little. I don't need stuff. And I don't buy stuff just to buy stuff. However, I understand that a value attached to a service, attached to giving, is actually beneficial for everybody. The added challenge that I had was that I'm also a teacher. I used to teach. And most people know that teachers don't get paid a lot, but we give a lot of free advice, don't we? After hours, before hours, during hours, it's not just about what we teach. It's all of the empowerment stuff that we do on the side that we don't get paid for. So those two factors combined, I had a lot of patterns to overcome, and I did. I did. And that hasn't stopped me from giving. It hasn't stopped me from being who I am. It just has helped me. That's what you working on your patterns can do for you. Forget about mindset. I don't like the term mindset. I actually trademarked my own term, mind flex. And if you are ready to be you, if you feel that burning sensation that there is something more, if you're ready to be you, if you want to live your life, live it your way and be all that you can be, reclaim the powerful, magnificent person that you are, then you got to start with the patterns. You need to re-identify, rediscover yourself. So start there. Start by writing down your patterns, the routines that you have. The fact that every Tuesday at 8 p.m. you do this. Every Wednesday at 1 p.m. you do this. For lunch on Thursdays, you always eat. Not judgmental, just write them down and figure out, why am I doing this? Who does it serve? Does it give me anything? Does it give that other person anything? That's where you start. So reclaim your power. Sound good? So I want you to walk up those stairs happily. Because it only takes one step. I hope this made a little bit of sense to you. I hope you understand why those patterns have power and that there are ways to unlock that power and make it beneficial for you and the rest of the world. As I said in the beginning, just send me a note. Let me know what your thoughts are. Let me just tell me how I can help you. And until then, until next time, either with me or with a guest, surprise, surprise, remember that I am grateful. You have just given me your time. And I always say that time is the most important gift that you can give anybody. So thank you for your time. And until next time, take those steps, love yourself, be you because you're needed, and I'll see you at the next show.